Baltimore, Maryland, and my name is Shelley. Once again, you're going to hear the same thing. I truly feel that this fellowship has allowed me to have two of the biggest honors in the world. One is to come here tonight and speak, and the other is this fellowship has allowed me to see my 19-year-old daughter celebrate 1 year clean last February. I would like to thank the convention committee for asking me to come here tonight. I would like to thank Bernard and France for being so patient and loving and kind and waiting at the airport and waiting and waiting. I would also like to take this time to thank and to tell this hotel, the employees of this hotel. I've been to many a convention, and it's always a good convention and a good hotel when you get your coffee within 20 minutes in the morning. And I did. Thank you. I have heard my story many times today, from Lynn just now, from Franz this morning. I don't often choke up during a clean time countdown, and I did here tonight. It's not often that I come to a convention and I'm one of the 10 people with the most clean time. 8.5 years to me is not a lot of clean time, because there's so much more I want. I was sitting up here and I had to wonder why I got so choked up. 9 years ago this weekend, my daughter's father was killed in a head-on car accident due to his addiction. I was not living with him at the time, but things started to happen after that. I turned 33 years old 2 days after he died. I will be 42 this Tuesday. And I started to think that I was the only thing my child had left. And look what I was doing with my life. At that time in my life, I had been living in a van, traveling all over the United States, obtaining the drugs that I needed to survive. They had not worked for years. It was just to be well, to not be dope sick. Six or 7 months after he died, I overdosed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I woke up tied and chained to a hospital bed. And something happened to me in that hospital room. For the first time in my life, I told the truth. Said I was addicted, and that I wanted to start living a different way. They sent me to a detox and kept me there for 6 days. 8.5 years ago, where I came from, unless you had major Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, the government doesn't take care of it there in the States. Anyway, I didn't have that. I was a street addict. I had been a prostitute for years. I had been incarcerated 7 different times. And I stayed there those 6 days. And around the third night, they told me to get dressed. I was going to a meeting. And I said, what kind of meeting? Because they had sent all the other patients to this other 12-step fellowship. I I didn't need that. I was an addict, so I didn't go to those. So they said, Shelley, get dressed, you're going to a meeting. And I said, what kind of a meeting? And they said, an NA meeting. And my counselors, I said, what is that? And they said, Narcotics Anonymous. Try to get out of that one. And you see, I couldn't. I had tracks running up and down my neck. I still have scars. I had a needle in my right wrist. I still have it. I have no veins. And I went. And I sat in a room with about 10, thank the good Lord, men. All in jeans and jean jackets. And I thought, wow, I'm in the right place. I don't know what possessed me to think that way. I had barely any teeth. My hair was falling out. I was yellow and gray. And I thought they were interested in me. See, I'm of the opinion that it doesn't matter why we come here, as long as we keep coming back. I had no place to go after that hospital except my mother's basement. She had not so lovingly detached from me years before. She had ceased to enable me. But she had my daughter living in her home, and there was really no place else for me to go. I did have to let go of my child. I know that pain. And I went there. When I got clean, there were 3 meetings. And the first meeting wasn't until 12 noon the next day. And I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. I have never in my life felt so alone. My daughter, who was 10 or 11, depends who's telling this story, her or I. I got her at 10. She has herself at 11. Brains don't work too well anymore. But anyway, whatever age she was all I had. And she was going to a pajama party that night, and around 11 o'clock, I heard a knock on the door. And I went and I opened it, and it was my child. And I looked at her and I said, Blake, why are you here? And she said, Mommy, I didn't want you to be alone. I have not been alone since that night. I truly believe that she really came back to make sure that I didn't leave the basement and go shoot dope. But it doesn't matter. Because I went to that meeting the next morning. That is my home group, the Saturday noon group. It has been my home group for 8.5 years. To make a long story short, because I don't have a lot of time up here, and my recovery was as horrendous to me as my 23-year active addiction. I spent my first 3.5, 4 years in this fellowship doing everything. Starting committees, starting hotlines, getting the H&I committee together, being the co-chair of the area. I was 3 months clean. They said, you're going to be the co-chair of the area. I said, okay. No problem. I can do anything. I too got in a relationship my first year. It got me pregnant. I was 8 months clean. And what was I going to do? I didn't want a relationship. relationship. I truly knew I couldn't have this child. I was physically incapable. So I planned to have an abortion. But I was not sure I could go through with it. And I did something very strange for me. I got on my knees that night. I've only gotten on my knees a couple times in my recovery. I pray in other ways. But I hit my knees that night, and I asked for help. I had a miscarriage in the middle of the night. After that point, I spent about 2.5 years totally sexually and emotionally and abstinent from all relationships with men, except my friends. I believe that was the best time of my recovery. I learned about Shelley. I read and I listened to tapes and I went to lots of meetings and I talked to my sponsors. And I learned what I wanted. And what I wanted was what Lynn just shared with us. A husband. No, not really a husband, but a man in my life that would love me the way I needed to be loved. But more importantly, a man that would allow me to love him the way I needed to love. To be loved and to give love. My third year clean, I got involved in the East Coast Convention Committee in my town, and we went to the third East Coast Convention and presented a bid, and we bid against the Connecticut area for that convention. I was the presenter. There was another guy who did the presenting for Connecticut. Connecticut won that year. I was devastated. How could they do this to me? I worked so hard. I organized all this. The truth of the matter was that the Connecticut area needed that convention and the Baltimore area didn't. And we do get what we need. But there was this nicest... men intimidated me at that time. And my defense for that was to get angry. My defense for everything is to get angry. I get angry. I'm not going to get angry. I'll show you I'm angry. Yeah, I'll talk about it. You know it. And so I got angry, and I felt that the committee was dope-fiending and mishandling it all. And this nice, gentle man spoke up for me and protected me. And then he won the convention. But I remember sitting in the banquet seeing this guy, and I had made a promise with myself that I would never, ever, ever, ever get involved with anybody under a year clean. That everybody in this program deserves the right. Sick addict and drive them to a meeting. And she would say, Shelley, the store. And I'd say, but Mom, there's an addict who needs me. And she'd shut up. We lost a lot of business. But I did what I needed to do.
kept myself busy. I kept myself involved. This disease is so devastating that I do believe if I didn't have those things in my life at that time, that I would not be here today. I didn't know how to think for myself. I didn't know what a feeling was. I spent my first year in my recovery so depressed that I slept as often and as much as I could. It was my body's way of handling life without drugs. Today, when people come into meetings and they say, I sleep all the time, I'm tired, my sponsor says there's something wrong with me, I say, no, there's not. You're getting well. You're healing. And that's what was happening for me. At 3.5 years clean, someone came to me and offered me a job working in the field of addiction, and I took it. It enabled me to leave my mother's home, which was not done pleasantly. She never learned how to let go. And to, for the first time in my life, be a responsible, productive member of society, not just in this fellowship. I paid taxes for the first time in my life, and I was 37 years old. The government had always taken care of me before that. That were drugs. My self-esteem started to grow. My self-respect started to come into my life. As good as it was painful because I had a mother who was, I'm the 4th generation addict, all on my mother's side in my family. And this is a family disease. And my mother, God bless her, had all the fears and all the insecurities that we all have. But she did not have the program of Narcotics Anonymous to allow her to talk about it in here. Therefore, she was riddled with hate and anger and resentment. And my life was not pleasant. I had to leave my daughter with her once again because I didn't know if I could make it out here in the world on my own. She had brainwashed me into believing that I could not take care of myself. She told me repeatedly that she feared the day she died that I would use. And I wasn't so sure how long she could be. I didn't know that I could do it. I learned how to live on nothing. I'll never forget my first Christmas with my child in my apartment. I bought her all these small $10 little presents, and I trimmed a tree that somebody had given to us. Thank God for this program. And it was just us and some people from the fellowship. And I didn't have money left for us to eat for a week. It was right after that Christmas that because of the convention that we were having in Baltimore, I had to go to a convention in Virginia. It was right after New Year's. But something happened to me on New Year's Eve. We had a fundraiser, a New Year's Eve dance, where everybody got all dressed up and came to the big college that we were having the convention at. And everybody appeared to me to be with someone else. You know, coupling. And I was selling T-shirts. And Everybody had somebody to dance with. Everybody had somebody to kiss at midnight. And I had all my little women around me that I sponsored, you know. And what I had been doing for these 3.5 years was learning about me. And coming to some decisions about what kind of man I wanted in my life. Today I have a choice about the man I want in my life. He wasn't going to beat me like all the other ones. And he wasn't going to tell me I was stupid. And he wasn't going to leave me sitting in the van for 24 hours because nobody wanted to be around me. You see, these are the things that I had been told all my life, and I believed them. And once again, I hit my knees when I came home from that dance, and I asked God to send me a man that would love me and allow me to love him and share in my life and enjoy the things that I enjoy. Days later, I went to the convention and met that man. You know, the one that did the presentation for Connecticut? The one with 9 months. He had 2.5 years. And I heard him share at the Saturday morning meeting. And I knew I had found my man. He asked me to marry him something like 10 days later, and I said yes. I sort of got even for him winning that convention, didn't I? We were married about 9 months after that. We decided we were going to do what normal people do, you know, people that don't come in here. Maybe that's not right. But you know what I mean, right? I mean, I didn't know what the appropriate time for an engagement was. I thought it was yesterday, you know. I thought, okay, I've talked to him, I've slept with him, it's nice. Let's get married. But my sponsor said, that's not right. We can't do that. This is the way we're going to do it. And that's the way I did it. We had a convention in Baltimore. What an event. For me, it was a dream come true. And I started to work on me once again. But not just me. Me in a relationship. Me in learning. See, that year, and everybody on this convention committee knows what I'm talking about, and anybody that's ever been involved in a convention knows what I'm talking about, but I didn't have time for my kid. I had to be at a literature committee meeting, or I had to be at a fundraising committee meeting. I couldn't go to PTA. I couldn't do that. First of all, I was afraid of all those other parents in the PTA. They weren't like me. They were scary to me. I was afraid of them. So I was always busy. I turned 5 years clean. And a lot of things started to happen for me. It was to me. I wasn't okay with me. I wasn't okay with you either. And I knew it. I was angry all the time. And I used it as a defense to keep you away from me. And I was very successful at it. I heard a lady earlier on in my recovery share at a convention in Virginia that it doesn't really matter when we work the steps. That for her, she seemed to be working a step a year. That they happened to her. And I thought, that's crazy. I had worked all my steps by the time I was 3 years clean. For me, the first 3 steps happened to me. They happened to me. I kept coming. I didn't pick up. I was restored to some kind of sanity. And I had turned my will and the care of my life over to you. To you. To this process that I call recovery. In my 5th year, I did another 5th step. And I really thought that the 6th and the 7th just were going to happen, man. I was going to pray and God was going to take all these defects away from me. That's what it says, I thought. When I first came in, I didn't think any defects at all. I thought the only thing that was wrong with me was I shot a little too much dope. In 5 years, I started to realize maybe there's something to this defect stuff. They were killing me. They were killing me. Inside. When you feel ugly on the inside, you look ugly on the outside. My mother used to tell me, pretty is as pretty does. And I wasn't being pretty. I wasn't treating anybody with kindness. I wasn't treating anybody with tolerance. Most of all, myself. I started to make arrangements to do something that I had never done in my recovery, and that was to go to treatment between my 5th and 6th year. I didn't get it my way. I didn't go when I was supposed to. I didn't go when I wanted to. I do believe I finally got there when I needed to. In April 2 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And we were told she had between 4 and 6 months to live. And you see, I had done what you people had told me. You told me that to make my amends to my parents and to my family, all I had to do was change and stay clean one day at a time. But you see, this woman was dying, and I knew it. And there had to be more. Because she wasn't going to go just doing that. Those 4 months, you people in these rooms allowed me to behave in any manner I needed to. I cried. And I ranted. And I raved. And it was you people that gave me the strength and the courage to tell that woman how I really felt all my life. Not just the stuff that I respected her and I admired her. And then I appreciated the fact that she raised 3 girls by herself. But I also got to tell her that I was afraid of her. That she physically and emotionally abused me all my life. When my mother died, I felt at peace. You people had given me the freedom to tell somebody how I really felt. I mean, really felt. We don't have just good feelings. We have bad feelings too. I was so afraid of her death. I was so afraid to be there. I wasn't alone. There were people on the program that waited outside. My husband came. Both my sisters, one's recovering in the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous in New Jersey. The other one, I don't know what her story is. If she isn't using, she's real sick. But we were all alone in the room with that woman, and I had to tell her it was okay to go. It was okay to let go. It's okay to die now. And I had to do it. And I did it. I did it because you all told me I could. Because you all showed me how. I asked my sisters if it was okay if we said the 23rd Psalm, because it was something that my mother and I used to say when I was living in her basement. And we would get scared. And I said it. And she expired 2 minutes later. Prayer works. She knew she could go. I believe that for the first time in her life, she was at peace. In the Jewish religion, and I'm Jewish, you're buried the next day, and you sit a period of, like, what do you call it? In Jewish, you sit Shiva, but in the Christian religion, it's what you do before you bury them, awake. And my mother had asked to have a graveside ceremony because she had no friends. I mean, she had no friends. Nobody. She didn't talk to her stepsister. Her mother was in a nursing home at the time, and I was the caretaker, the caregiver, the responsible person for her. And so she had no family and no friends. And I really thought that I would be alone at that funeral. But that's not the way you people wanted it. There were maybe 100 cars, or that's what it appeared to be to me. And 200 people met in front of my mother's house. and went to the cemetery with me. They were all people who my mother had touched their lives because she was active in the Fellowship of Narcotics. She had started it in Baltimore. And she had touched their lives, or they knew me in early recovery, or they knew me, then. And they were all there for me. And like your banner says, never alone again. Because of you people, I had people with me in a time of great need. I was not left alone for 24 hours. There was somebody with me or by my side, caring for me and feeding me and cleaning and doing all the things that we do when we need another person. I kept saying to my husband, why are these people doing this for me? Why are they here? And he'd say, Shelley, it's not just for you. It's because of you. They are recovering. They are growing up. They are allowed to do the right thing, a good thing. Three months after my mother's death, I did get to go to the treatment center. And I learned about why I am the way I am. I was taught that there's a little child inside of Shelley. And when you scare that little child, or when she is scared, we're confused, we're bewildered, we're anxious. That she does the one thing that saved her all her life. She'd get angry. And I began to understand why I was so angry. And I started to accept that I was so angry. And I started to work on it. Another thing happened to me right around the time of my mother's death, and that was I was diagnosed with dysplasia, which is almost cancer. And I was told I needed a hysterectomy. And I had surgery before in recovery and would not allow them. I would search for doctors to do it my way. I would search for a doctor to not put me under anesthesia. I would search for a doctor who could understand that I was an addict and could not use any drugs, period. And it always worked. I would go through these minor surgeries and with no drugs and no anesthesia, and it would hurt and I'd be okay. Always with other addicts around me. Always. But see, this was the big one. And my doctor said, not this time, Cookie. You're not having it your way. And I was real scared. I wasn't sure at that time how bad it was. I wasn't sure about where I would be afterwards. I was scared about the drugs. Yeah, I was real scared about the drugs. But I did it. She told me she would have to give me morphine for 4 days, and it didn't sit right with me, but I didn't say anything. And after the surgery, they kept me heavily medicated for maybe 36 hours. I need to tell you guys that it was out of my control, and I decided that the only way to handle it was to enjoy it. So I set my little pack of cigarettes, and I had my little 6-pack of Pepsi, and I had all these addicts around me all the time, and I nodded. And they'd talk, and I'd nod. And I didn't even try not to nod. I mean, I figured if I go with the flow, maybe I won't need it so long, and that's really what happened to me. I didn't fight the pain, and I didn't fight the medication, and after 36 hours I told them no more, and I didn't need it. And by the grace of God, this was on Thursday. Saturday I went into an NA meeting in that hospital and got an NA meeting. The other honor that this fellowship has given me is that it has allowed me to see my daughter get clean. And she went into treatment in February of that same year as a direct result of what happened to me in that treatment center. She said she saw us. I asked her last week, what happened? Why did you go? What was it? Was it the way I acted? Was it what I said? And she said, no, Ma. It was the way you looked. You had a twinkle in your eye that won't stop. And I was in trouble, and I wanted that twinkle too. And she asked to go to treatment. And because of the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, and because of the fact that I am responsible today, I could give her the best affordable treatment there was. She was not going to come into recovery like me if I could do anything about it, and that's all I could do. I couldn't be your higher power, and I couldn't be your counselor, and I can't be your sponsor, but I could see that she got the best and pray that it worked. And it has. She spent 4 months in treatment and then came home, and the next dilemma was, how is this kid going to recover in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous when I started a lot of these meetings and everybody knows me? And hardly too many people like me. And this poor child's going to come in here and try to get clean. I was so worried. She not only had me here, but she had her father here. You people allowed her to do it. Thank you. I'm still in service. I'm the treasurer of a group. I go to my home group every Saturday. I sponsor women, not too many women anymore. I work on Shelley, and I'm in service to Shelley. When Lynn was speaking, she touched me. There's been a woman in my life for 6 years. She came around the program for 8 years. and 6 years ago called me from a detox unit and asked me to pick her up, and I did. And she'd been in and out and in and out. And on the way home from that detox unit, she asked me to sponsor her. She's the woman that I went to live with when I left my mother's. She's the woman that put food in my mouth and gave me a roof over my head and took my kid in when we needed it. There has not been an event in my recovery. She was the co-chairman of the convention with me. She has been in my life at every major and minor event in my recovery, and I in hers. She was pregnant in her 3rd year of recovery and had a child, and I went to Lamaze class. I was the daddy. I watched that little baby come out. It's through her that I was allowed to do something that I was not, that I did not have 19 years ago when I had my child, and that's seeing a life being born. To a child who today there's hope for because of these rooms. To a child who doesn't have to grow up like my child. For a child that's never going to hear that she's stupid. For a child that's never going to hear that she can't do it. About 4 months ago, that woman called me and told me that she was thinking about drinking. And I begged her not to. I'm 8 years clean, and I begged another addict not to use. And I hung the phone up and I called my sponsor. I've had the same sponsor for 7.5 years. And I told her what I did. She told me, who was I to beg? I'm not God. Who am I to deny another addict their pain? That all I could do was to be there. That all I could do was love her. That all I could do was allow her to know that there was a place for her to come back to and people who cared. And other than that, I can do nothing. I have done that. That woman sent me roses, sent my husband and I roses yesterday. We talk on a daily basis. I do not ask her if she drinks. I do not ask her if she's used. I want her to know that there's somebody and other people and a program here that works. It works for everybody when they want it. It will give you everything you need. It will allow you to become the person that you want to become. It has given me a man in my life that I cherish. I've not only been faithful for 4.5 years, but I like it. We work on it. I'm not an easy person to live with. Neither is he. We do not sponsor each other. We try not to go to the same meetings together. He allows me to do what I need to do for my recovery, and he does what he needs to do for his recovery. It's definitely the easier, softer way. I don't have to control him. I don't even have to think about controlling him. He tells me I can't. What's more important is you people have allowed me not to want to have some faith that it's going to be okay. There have been times where I didn't know if it would be okay. You people in rooms like this have allowed me to learn how to live a life worth having. A life worth living. My dreams have all come true. I have the house, I have the car, I have the career, I have the man, but more importantly, I have my recovery. I have a relationship with that child today, my daughter. I do not treat her like she was another recovering addict. I treat her like she is my child. I give her all the love she wants and needs. When she has a problem, I'll come downstairs and first I'll hold her, support her, and then I'll ask her if she wants me to be a member of this program. It's her choice. She'll tell me, yes, Mommy, talk to me like, a member of this program. And I'll suggest some things to her. Other than that, I'm there to be a mother. You people have allowed me to be a mother. You have allowed me to be a wife. You have taught me how to be a human being. And I thank you for it. God bless you.